different types of dolphins, which is also quite unique. So we get like humpback dolphins and bottlenose and all of those things. So it's all
Mm.
good. And a lot of rays. We're seeing a lot of black rays at the moment, which are big. They're just slightly smaller than the manta ray. So
Yeah, yeah, and you
abundant.
can observe them from the shore. Basically, that's where you see them, right?
Yeah.
Because even from the
Yeah.
shore, you can see them.
So if you look at our bay, we have a big peninsula that juts out called Roberg Peninsula. And when you hike on that, you can look down into the
Hmm.
sea. And we've seen hammerheads, rays, seals. It's a massive seal colony. And that's why the great whites come to eat the seals. So there's always something to photograph. I'm always out there. You know what I'm like with my camera.
Amazing. I'm coming. I'm going to visit you in Plettenberg. That's what's happening.
Fantastic.
I'm
Looking
going to
forward
make
to it.
space for it. Yeah. So, folks, just in case you didn't know, Vanessa Rath here lives in like the most beautiful place in the world, which I think it's up there, right? It's literally up
It
there.
is. No, it's
Um, and you should
beautiful.
follow Vanessa if you're interested in like photography or any type. This lady has got some amazing shots, like absolute elite level, pro level shots of the wildlife in
Thank
South
you.
Africa.
Thank
So
you. Well, hung, I
amazing
always
stuff.
say one day when I'm big, watch out National Geographic. Here I come. So I just put my Insta handle into the chat if anyone does want to give me a follow. And there'll be more photos coming up next week, actually, because I've got a next bunch to post.
All right, cool. Is this you, a safari you've just been back from or something, or what?
No, no, no. We've actually got that's going to be epic. We're doing a month-long safari at the end of the year and renting out our house here in Plett, and we're going to be in the bush for a month. So I'm hoping to I'll come back easily 1,500 photos from that. I can't
That's
wait.
insane. Can I ask you,
Yeah.
can you do us a favor? And you might not like
Yes.
this, but I really think you've got an opportunity to do some like moving image as well, like video stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any chance that you could do some of that? Because it would be amazing
Yeah.
to actually see what it's like to be in the bush for a month.
Yeah.
Because no one
Well,
knows
my,
how to
my
do that
camera
apart from you.
actually does both. I just love the art of getting that perfect photo
Hmm.
and, getting, animals in motion and things like that. I actually put my husband in charge of doing the videos. So he grabs, we've got good cell phones and you get great
Get him on
videography and
it.
shots. Yeah. And he,
Yeah,
and, and he does. I mean, we're both in the car together. You know him and, that's what we do. It's great.
I want to see the behind. Do we want to see the behind the scenes footage of Vanessa Roth in the bush for a month? I think we do, don't we, folks?
Yeah. Because you
Let
don't
us
you
know in
don't
the
get smell
comments.
with that. So it's good.
That's right. Anyway, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. It's episode 333, and how many of these we're doing? I think we're gonna break the record of number of Brainfood Lives we're doing this year. I think we're gonna do about 60 to
Excellent.
70, which is
Wow.
crazy, and great. Always, obviously, to have Vanessa Rath in the co-pilot seat. Vanessa, I think everyone knows you already, but why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Cool, excellent. So at the moment, I'm introducing myself as the lady from South Africa who's having a midlife crisis because I was always the talent sourcing trainer, which I still am the talent sourcing trainer, but now I'm doing a lot in the AI space. So I'm doing a lot of AI consulting, AI literacy workshops, just helping people put together their AI roadmaps, which tools to use, and just having a blast. As long as I'm still having fun and enjoying what I'm doing, I'm happy. So that's me in a nutshell. And as you said, based in the beautiful Plettenberg Bay.
Yeah, fantastic. And Vanessa, obviously, someone great to follow. And it's an interesting story where we're at with sourcing. We'll probably do a follow up show on this because there has certainly be a transition.
Yeah.
The good thing about sourcing is that generally the people who are good at sourcing and interested in it should be very, very good at getting into the AI enablement space as well, because it is slightly
Yeah.
technical. And the mindset, I think, sort of lends itself to get in there. But there's no question that the demand for the old school interrogation of databases with Boolean sourcing, etc., that's kind of dropping away simply because it seems that AI is going to just generate a lot of those results for us with a natural
Mm.
language prompt. So yeah,
Yeah.
we might do a sourcing show on that and then figure out
Yeah.
what the story is. Anyway, follow Vanessa. I've just shared her link down there today. But there's a reason why Vanessa's here as well, because Vanessa's really fantastic at this other angle we're talking about, which is how do you actually build a community of recruiters or a community of anybody in this modern day and age. I've got a theory. The theory simply is AI enabled communication. We're going to go across an engagement cliff. So, in other words, we generate AI messages. It's going to work to a certain degree. Then everyone's going to get inundated with them. We're going to zone out and we're just going to revoke our attention. And the result of that is that the people who've got the ability to then get interaction with the candidates or clients or whoever it is you want to interact with are those people that have already built an audience or a community or a kind of a relationship with a bunch of people that are prepared to take your call no matter what the structure of the message. So that's the topic of today. We've got a bunch of people that are fantastic and have got a historical record of building communities, often within the TA space. And we're going to just try and learn, okay, what is it? How do you build a community? How do you build an audience? How can you get 100 people to actually open your email? That's basically what the topic of today is going to be. Okay, cool. Let's, well, I think sound checks we should really do. But yes, can everyone hear us okay on Crowdcast? Maybe you can't. Let us know in the comments on there. We should be live streaming this on a number of sort of LinkedIn lives as well. I think there's 5 or 6 of us going live here. Let us know in the comments whether you can hear us okay there as well. And we should be good to go. Thank you very much, Jim and John. I think we should be fine. All right. Now, before we kick off, we have to, of course, thank our sponsors every week for supporting Brainfood Live. This show cannot continue without people who are prepared to come on and talk and support the show. And every week we have one of those businesses doing it. So I feel really blessed that that's the case. Right, that we give them the platform to talk about what they do when we can. So today's sponsor is, of course, one of our favorites of 2025 and beyond. It is Ashby, one of the leading ATSs out there in the marketplace. I think everyone knows that if you're looking to upgrade a product, Ashby has got to be one of the products you're considering. But why don't I sort of bring on one of our guests to have a chat about that? Because Willem Wijnands, I think, is here. So let's invite him on stage and he can tell us all about it. I think there's some interesting new product features coming out of nice. Ashby as well. So this is going to be interesting to chat with. There he is.
What's the frame? Where's the frame?
That's it. The dancing Willem Wijnands these days.
Dancing.
Adding extra to your numerous skills. Willem, wonderful to see you, man. Hope you're doing good. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself, bro? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah. So I'm Willem. I work at Ashby. We're an all-in-one recruitment platform, focusing mostly on the ambitious hiring teams, and instead of, I think, stitching together different tools. When you choose Ashby, you get an ATS, you get CRM, scheduling, sourcing, advanced analytics, and until yesterday, we also added the AI note taker, which I'm very excited about. Nice. From a personal perspective, I was customer number 7, so back in 2019. So I have a big TA background. So I've seen from myself, but also for now all the customers, how much it had a strategic impact and gave people a seat at the table, which I'm very proud of. Then, today we're 3,000 customers, scaling quickly, and basically when talent operations is mentioned, Ashby is there to help you. And in the current role that I have, so I did a lot of motivating my peers to join Ashby, which has been quite successful, and now I'm nurturing that community. So from my point of view, I kind of like run the education programs. I'm sponsoring some of the fine folks that are throwing events here in that are on the call today. I'm basically all about our customers, actually. So for me, the community is not like what I was quite disappointed at with my vendors back in the day when I was at a TA. They focused mostly on like the net new, the people that they could sell the product to. Well, I obviously care about that, but I also care very much about the customer side. So throwing customer breakfast, like lunch and learns, everything to, I try to get every marketing dollar to our customer. So very excited, very exciting role, actually. Very happy.
Yeah,
cool.
Very unique position. And actually, folks, this may be a very interesting pathway for you. If you're early adopter of technology, you might end up sort of getting a role like Willem's and just basically having parties.
Yeah, that on the early tech.
That's it. Well, Willem, listen, we're going to bring you back on the show because obviously you've got a lot to talk about. But tell us a little bit about the new AI note taker, because this is the big news that was announced yesterday, wasn't it? What's the story here, man?
Yeah, a long time coming, obviously. Like we've seen note taking kind of like becoming commoditized. We call ourselves an all-in-one platform, and we don't like it when people use other tools than outside of the product, because it really beats the purpose. So we spent the last 6 months really kind of like building our own note taker. We don't really acquire companies and try to stitch everything together. We actually built stuff ourselves, which we know like it's well engineered and it works well. So yeah, incredibly proud of the team, the engineering team, to pull that off in 6 months. And yeah, like I've used it for my, like I hired a second community person here in EMEA, used the note taker, and it's just really great to have it all in one environment. We have an AI assistant, and you can query it, from like, what are the gaps in the interview, kind of like where was compensation mentioned, and it basically has the full context. So it not just has the note taking, like the transcript, etc., but also the notes and all the interview feedback. So it just really saves a lot of time, which I think everybody who has used a note taker already experienced. But then having it in the TA, kind of like the closed container of the TA pro or the candidate profile is very magical. I'm very happy with these kind of AI functionality shifts. It's good that we can spend more time with our candidates.
Is it available for every user?
Every customer gets 500 meetings so that they can try it out. Obviously, we still support the major note takers out there because they're partners of ours as well. Some even customers. So there's space for everything, but like we want people to try it out. So if you're actually a customer on the call today, you can enable it and try it out for yourself.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Yeah, look, it's wonderful to see the kind of product innovation coming out of ADSs. So yeah, great move by the product.
Yeah, and top of that, we also ship AI fraud, kind of like notifications, etc. So it's not just the note taking. There's a lot of AI functionality, and yeah, I'm very excited just about the space, and also our founder Benji, kind of like how he prioritizes responsible AI, which it's just I think very much needed.
No, another important topic, and again, we'll be hitting that in the coming weeks as well. Well, okay, Willem, wonderful to see you here. We're going to bring you back later, but let's review the newsletter first. Willem Wijnands, folks, go and follow him on LinkedIn, and if you're interested in knowing more about sort of Ashby, of course, he's a wonderful person to speak to about that. Okay, cool. Well, listen, Van, let's get on with this. Let's review the newsletter real quick, and then we'll bring on the crew to talk about this topic. What was interesting from the newsletter last week, my friend?
So really interesting, and you actually touched on it in your intro, is that in your poll, which I'm loving your poll every week, by the way, I always make sure that I vote, is sourcing was the highest stage in the recruitment process to actually be replaced. I think it was sitting at 42% or something like that. So interesting when you have such a reach of your audience that's what people were saying. That was the results of the previous week's poll, which was I was quite surprised at, but in another breath, I was like, well, yeah, I get it. Hence the fact of the identity crisis. So that was the first one that really kind of slapped me between the eyeballs. And then the other thing that I really enjoyed, seeing I seem to spend a lot of my time, either training people how to use OpenAI, ChatGPT better, or using it myself, was the high percentage of people that are still using it for their purpose, their personal purposes, 80%, which I thought was super high. I mean, how many recipes can you generate? How many, domestic disputes can you solve using ChatGPT? So I thought that was pretty amazing, because I never use it, pretty much don't use it for personal things. I kind of like, well, maybe I'm fortunate that I don't have to, but I thought that was interesting.
I think on that note, though, Van, what was interesting, there was 2 reports, wasn't there, from both OpenAI and Anthropic, released more or less on the same day. And whilst they had different views on, the different user communities, so the behaviors are different, but they both kind of agreed that there was increasing usage of their products for exactly this thing, personal usage. So it's kind of diffusing into personal life in much the same way as the internet once upon a time was just an academic research thing. But, obviously we used it for other stuff, and now it's predominantly a personal thing. Same with mobile phones. Once upon a time, it was like a yuppie satellite phone. You don't use it for business comps, right? That kind of thing. Now, of course, no one uses it for business. It's all like entertainment.
Exactly.
So AI is coming this way as well.
And then if you compare those two reports, how many more people are using Anthropic for coding, where I think Anthropic Claude is actually really good for content creation, and how few people are using OpenAI for coding, I think that was around about 5%. But the second thing in that article, which really amazed me, was that a small percentage of people, and I think it was something like 20% of people, were using generative AI, ChatGPT, to generate from scratch. More, it was being used as a user case of someone taking an email, popping it in, taking a blog, putting it in, and asking for refinement. So it wasn't like it was being used as an autonomous tool. It was pretty much used to augment or refine something that had already been created. And I thought that was an interesting user case, because we sometimes feel like we're being bombarded, but
no, that's it. It's basically used for editing. It's used for knocking things into shape, spell checking even. So basic stuff. So the human is definitely still in there. And we're not at the point where the predominant usage is, people just generating, 100% of whatever it is and then publishing it. That doesn't seem to be what the use case is. And this, by the way, is user data from OpenAI and Anthropic. So they're actually tracking how people use it. It's not survey data. So take it on face value that they're being honest. Then it's actually very educational to have a look. Anyway, both of those research papers are in that newsletter. So go ahead and take a look at those. Okay, what else, Van, was interesting?
The one that I had quite a chuckle at, being the talent sourcer at heart, was the job titles. So I love the way that the person who wrote that about the new AI job titles coming out, was a whole cheat sheet into the ecosystem, was completely like you did for kids. I mean, she had like that whole dinosaur example of, if you throw in machine learning or it was senior, or was it working on data? Was it working on pure intelligence? It was actually just really interesting. And the way that it was framed and very visual, which is something that I also enjoy, that was a really good article to read, and something that us as talent sources and recruiters need to think about, that we don't just, go and look for the bog standard roles, but these people have got some weird and wonderful titles that we need to include.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a new world. And whenever you have a new category or a new change of, technologies, there's going to be a mushrooming effect of all of these job titles. How do you make sense of it? And this person here, basically, I thought were really humorous and very useful blog post.
Yeah, really good.
Just breaking down how are these job titles actually generated? And that really helped us understand what these roles were. So yeah, one of my favorites of that week for sure. Go take a look. I've shared the link in the chat stream there. Okay, give us one more, Van, and then we'll get on with it.
The one that really actually got me thinking was your first one. So it took me ages to read your newsletter this week, because the first one was so interesting. Yeah, I should hope so. The first one was so interesting because it was those top 50 most popular AI sites, where it started off with, ChatGPT, and then it went to DeepSeek, and then I got to number 5, and it was character AI. And I was like, oh, I've heard of character AI, but I haven't gone to play. Obviously, an hour and a half later, once I'd gone and built my own character and all of those things, I was deep into character AI. And it just kind of reminded me that, we do get quite stuck in our ways as human beings. And, this is what we use, and this is the only thing that we use. But there's so many AI solutions out there and tools that we should be spending more time exploring, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what can be done, because we don't know that the tools actually exist that enable us. I mean, I never thought I could make myself into a cartoon character, a really good one. And now I know. And that's important.
That's it. I've just shared the link down there as well. It's the top 100 consumer generative AI products based on traffic. And yeah, like we all know the top 5 maybe, but then there's 95 of them. And I just think, what might be worth your while, just spending half an hour, half a morning, maybe just go and click through a few of these things and have a look.
So I'm on about 30 now. So thanks for that.
Okay, good stuff. Let's get on with the show, Van. Before we bring our guests on, give us your take on this. Why do you think community building is important in the future of recruiting? What's your general take on it, and how have you kind of built your community in South Africa?
Okay, awesome. I love that question. So for me, I'm going to answer this, and I'm just going to say it, that I think community is the future of recruitment. Because exactly as you said, and this is something, so I started my own business 7 years ago. And the first course I ever ran for recruiters was building an online brand, having a personal brand, having a presence, building trust with people so that when you do reach out to them, they actually do respond to you because they know who you are, they've heard your name. And I just think that is going to be everything because we're now in a world deep into AI generated characters, hey gen, synthesia, deep fakes. Who can people trust? But they will trust someone that they know has been around for ages, has a good name in the industry, and that's who they're going to go with in the future. So that's to answer the first part of your question. The second part of your question is, so I very proudly run the Talent Hunters community on Facebook. We've just tipped over 6,000 members. We've just had our 7-year anniversary. And if I want to give advice to anyone who wants to start a community, especially in the recruiting space, whether you are, a recruiter and you want to build a community for candidates, is you've got to be prepared to give back a hell of a lot more than what you are going to receive. And that is it's just the bottom line. If you're not a giving person, you don't have time for, the one-man band who's struggling, doesn't know whether they want to close their company or not, or whatever the scenario is, just don't get involved. Because if you don't have that time and you don't have commitment and you don't have that empathy for others, it could go wrong very, very quickly. Because a large part of my day is spent helping people pro bono, free advice, handing CVs around, and I'll do it with the greatest of pleasure, not because I'm Pollyanna or a saint, but because I genuinely do enjoy helping people. And that's the crux of a community. You want to do it for the right reasons.
That's so important. What's the motive, the intrinsic reason for it?
Yes.
And I think you're so right, Van, because if you do it for like purely instrumental reasons, like, oh, I want to create this community because I want to sell into it, or, it's useful for me at this point. I don't think that's sustainable, simply because there's going to be so much like, what is the point type of moments during the course of your building of a community that you're going to give up, because
and
the
it's
intrinsic motivation, it's a huge amount. It's unpaid hard work, and there's the big sort of difference. You've got to be prepared to put the effort in without expectation of return, and it might feel like a bad deal, but I'm going to bring some people on that I think have just made it into a brilliant deal. And just to give an example of what can be achieved, and also how everyone can gain from a thriving community.
Yeah. And I just want to, while you're bringing them on, 3 out of 4 of us, or 3 out of, I think 4 of us, that are guests today on your show are all speaking at Sourcing Summit in 2 weeks' time in Amsterdam, which is another fantastic sourcing community, within itself. So it's great to see that like-minded individuals attract each other. And I think that is also really important. And I will say to you, Hung, the one thing that I learned from you about communities was consistency. Every Sunday morning, the first email that's in my inbox is your email. And I took that into my Talent Hunters group, and every morning, 6 o'clock South African time, there's a post that goes out. Yeah. And if a post doesn't go out, people contact me and say, Van, are you all right? Like where are you? Like, what's going on? And that I'm not up 6 o'clock every morning to post these. But it is because people then know where to find you, where they expect to, track you down.
Okay, so there's a wonderful sort of moments there to be aware of. Consistency important, because you habituate the audience. And once you've done that, firstly, you're a support function for them, but it also means you've got their attention. Like those folks who checked in on you, Van, I'm pretty certain you'd be able to. I'm pretty certain you'd be able to get them to do something for you if you needed to, right? If you ask them for a favor, they're going to do it.
And it's a two-way thing. I mean, my community got me through COVID. I mean, that's why I ran it, and we all helped each other. It's not a one-way street, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Okay, let's bring on some of our guests. We've got some big hitters here, of course. Lars Schmidt is coming on, of course, one of our great friends. Marie Chaponnier. I don't know whether I've pronounced that properly. Probably haven't, Marie. You tell me how to do it better when you're on. We've got Mahmoud Ali as well. Let's bring him on. I think we'll bring Willem as well back onto the show. Let's see whether we can squeeze him in. Was
it's like a reunion
that we had? It is, yes. And we might just open it up for other folks that might want to just swing on by, because it's one of these where let's just share some community tips, and then see where we're all at. Oh, there's Lars. Great to see Lars. Wow. Lars, how are you doing?
Hey,
Mahmoud is here. Marie is here as well.
Good to see you, Ben.
Hey gang, how's it going? Good to see everyone.
Hello. It's
Guys,
Good,
Marie
good stuff,
Chaponia.
everybody. Say it again, Maddie.
Also, my name is Marie. I'm British. Chaponia.
Chaperon, yeah, love it. Okay, let's do some intros. Lars, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hey, I'm Lars Schmidt. I'm the head of talent at a CPG company called Fruitist. Spent about 25 years in the space, doing a range of things. So ran my own firm, amplified talent for about 11 years before kind of moving back into corporate, and then spent 15 years in corporate prior to that, running talent teams and recruiting teams at Ticketmaster, Magento, and NPR. So been doing this for a while, collaborated with Hung on a range of initiatives. I've written a few books, have a column at Fast Company, podcast communities, all that stuff. So, but yeah, mostly I'm just someone who appreciates this space, and feel fortunate that I've had a lot of different roles within it. So.
Yeah, fantastic. And Lars, you've been a great inspiration for me and so many other people as well, from all of your
Absolutely.
community content, conversation hosting stuff as well. So I really look forward to having this chat with you. Mahmoud, will you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Awesome, absolutely. My name is Mahmoud. I'm originally from Egypt, from Cairo, and I live in the Netherlands. I've been working in the TA space for the past 10 years. I've been recruiting in a lot of different industries, but mostly in the tech space. I, at the moment, work at SEMrush. I lead recruitment for their marketing and retention divisions globally. And just before SEMrush, I worked at Nike for about 3 years. That explains all the shoes. And at Nike, I was also leading recruitment, but on the tech space side, on the data and AI space. And then for the past 2+ years now, I have created and still running the ERC, which is Egypt Recruiting Community. It's a community of recruiters, and now actually expanded to more people and culture in Egypt. It's the first and now the biggest one that we have. And I'm very, very proud of the work that we've done and excited to share more about it today.
Fantastic stuff, Mahmoud. Marie, who are you and what it is you do, my dear?
I'm Marie. I'm from London. Originally, I live in Amsterdam for the last 8 years, and I spent 15 years working in TA, primarily in startups and scale-ups and the tech and creative industry. My role kind of spanned across leadership, employee branding, leading DEI and employee resource groups. And the last couple of years, I've had a little bit of a life shift, I would say. Being in my late 30s as a woman, going through mental health challenges, burnout, a diagnosis with ADHD, and started to become very visible around my neurodiversity. Actually, only last year was the first time that I really decided to take to LinkedIn. And it ended with me stepping away from the organization that I worked for at the time in manufacturing and setting up my own business, which is the community Behind the Mask. And Behind the Mask is a HR and people leaders community where we unmask stigmas around all of those topics: neurodiversity, mental health, men's health, women's health, and so on. So we're just getting started. I'm an early stage community founder, builder.
But
yeah.
Also amazing, Marie, to learn from those moments as well, like how you put together a community. I think in 2026, 2025, should I say, is that different from what it was in 2024? I don't know. Maybe it is. So loads to learn from you. Thank you for coming on the show, Marie. And of course, we have Willem as well. We won't bother introducing. We've already done that. But we're all sort of involved in this kind of idea and concept of, okay, it's useful to build a community and it's valuable for everybody to do it. What do we get out of it? That's probably something that we should sort of start with, because it is a huge amount of work. We're going to get onto the work in a bit. But what is it that we get out of being a community organizer, community starter? What are our thoughts there? Lars, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that anybody who runs a successful community, they get intrinsic value from the experience. They like to connect people. They like to learn from the community. They like to foster growth in the community members. They like to impact the industry at large. right? Like I think there's these meta drivers that I think most people who build communities are striving for. And so I think a lot of times, especially, there's context here as well. There's paid communities, there's free communities. I think we're all mostly talking about free communities. So I'll focus my answer around that. But I think that ultimately you have to get something from the ability to like connect people, help people grow, help people learn, but ultimately impact an industry. Like I think even looking back to HR open source, we founded in 2011. Like there was no business plan there. That was like my friend Ambrosia and I saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we applied open source to HR and recruiting and see what happens, and that grew into a community of over 10,000 members over 100 countries. But there was never like a business plan. There was never a model. I think we were just like, we've been really fortunate to tap into, we kind of joked about like tapping into the matrix. Like we were at TalentNet, we're at all these different conferences, we're hanging out with people like Hung and Craig Fisher and all these other people who have been kind of leading from the front for a long time. And we're like, this is great for us. And it's an accelerant on our capability and our work. But we're very fortunate. Most people don't have access to this. So what if we created a platform to kind of democratize access to these thinkers and doers and create case studies? And so for us, it was just like, we wanted to pay it forward and say, so many people have helped us in our careers. So what can we do to kind of create a platform where more people can access these ideas? And obviously the world of communities has just blossomed since then. That was early days, but that was really the driver. And I think for us, there was never, we put more money into it than we ever got out of it. And that was fine. It was more of like the reward of just knowing that we're making a lasting impact on the industry. That was the big driver for us.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And that information circulation is a huge component of what community is all about. It's about getting information away from like a broadcast model and just having it sort of accelerating these peer-to-peer exchanges. That's where you get so much of the richness of it. Mahmoud, let's go to you. What's inspired you to set up your community? What was the motivator?
Yeah. Honestly, very similar to what Lars said as well. For me, when I moved to the Netherlands, the community obviously didn't exist. And when I moved here, I started to see all of those communities that already exist in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam specifically. And I started to attend all of those events, and it really helped me a lot professionally. But also, I met so many very cool people through those communities. And I thought it would have been really cool if I had that when I was getting into the recruitment field or the HR field in Egypt. And that's when the idea came in. I thought I would love to do that now to allow someone else to enjoy it, especially if they're still coming up in their career. So that was the whole idea behind ERC. I actually started with one event. All I wanted to do was just one event, one recruitment meetup. And then after it, so many people asked for more events. And then we kept doing one after the other. And then ERC became an actual community. So that was the whole idea for me, is I just really wanted to help others who maybe are going through the same thing that I went through in my career before. And now that I have the network and the resources available, I thought, why not do it? And like Lars said, I definitely put more into it than I get out of it in terms of money, in terms of a lot of things. But it's very intrinsically for me. I really want to pay it forward for others. I have gained a lot of connections here, and I made a very good and solid network. So I thought, why not put that to work and create something for others to finally feel that they're belonging to somewhere? Because we have so many communities in Egypt, but they're mostly around marketing or tech or entrepreneurship, but there wasn't really anything for people and culture. So that was just the idea, and that's why I wanted to do it.
Yeah, fantastic. And it takes someone to do it. It doesn't just emerge, but by default, there's loads of places and loads of segments and loads of kind of industries that are kind of screaming out for somebody to just step up and say, okay, great, I'm just going to do a meetup or something. And let's gather a few people together. And then it just snowballs from there. So it takes that personality to step forward to actually create the space. Marie, what are your thoughts? You've started this community. You've told us a little bit about your journey. What was why the community side though? Like, what was the reason why the next thing would be actually getting people together in a place like this?
Yeah, like it never intended to be that. I was still employed when I set up the community. And I was finding community kind of through LinkedIn and connecting with people that would resonate a lot with some of the topics and the stories and the challenges that you also face in the workplace. And yeah, it's it took a situation with the employer that I was working at that we realized that there was not an alignment anymore between our values, like what my values are and what I cared about and what authenticity kind of meant to me, and also the organization that I worked for. And so I was almost like forced into a position to really lean into community as a sense of healing. So similar to what you said, Van, when you mentioned, like, I built this during COVID, like we needed one another. It was the same situation for me. I was burnt out and I was really struggling. And actually, I found that I wasn't resonating with the things around me, but I was resonating with the people who had similar lived experiences to me. And so it was very organic, but stepping away from the organization meant that I had to think with a business mind. And so the community that I'm building isn't a free community. We want the right people to also show up to our experiences and these dinner events that we're hosting. So they are ticketed and they're paid experiences. And then the same for the platform. I've invested everything into building this platform financially, energetically, because I want to build this ecosystem for change. I want to build ecosystem for change with the right leaders, businesses, people to come together. So it's been very much about like, what impact can I make? What's aligned to me and who I am.
Thank you very much, Marie. I do think that is an understated element as well. The need, like, there's a mental health component to community as well, isn't there? I remember actually the very first time I ended up trying to set up a community was exactly this. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm trying to battle away, sort out all these problems. Totally no one to speak to, because I was the solo recruiter in this tech startup. It turns out I met another person who was a solo recruiter in his tech startup. He had no one to speak to. We wanted to speak to each other. So it was like, okay, we actually needed a sense of collegiate experience, because recruiters are actually quite a small component of every business that we're in. I think if you look at the workforce of a general workforce of a business, recruiters are less than 1% of that business. You're gonna get 10% of salespeople, 20% might be salespeople. There's a big kind of peer group within company, but it's very common actually for a recruiter to play it solo for a long time, and maybe that is the full state. So who do you speak to? Cool. Willem, sort of on your side, let's bring it to you as well. Coming up with the community at Ashby, we know that there's a difference between having a vendor-powered community compared to something that's totally grassroots. Can you give us a little bit of like a historical journey as to how that emerged, though, within Ashby? How did that sort of strategy emerge, and what were the conversations that created what you got now?
Yeah, I think obviously, we're a business, and the community for us is so important that we thrive or that they can thrive, building their jobs on Ashby. For me, the reason why we started building the community like we're doing is because Shannon, my counterpart in the US, and I have both have a very long-standing recruitment career, and we missed a lot from like I told in the intro, like missed a lot from our vendors back in the day. So I think if you look at the US and the European kind of like community building is completely different, but it is a very personal approach from what we missed as talent people in the, when we were in your shoes. I think the reason why I'm focusing so much on customers is because Ashby is it's basically 5 or 6 tools in one, and there is a learning curve. And I think everybody needs to have the opportunity to at least stick together with your with peers that are doing the same things, or maybe suffering from the same data problems, or like trying to prove their worth to the C-level, etc. And what I've seen, bringing customers together, and not just throwing dinners, but also from a learning perspective, is that lasting relationships got built, and I've seen that over my whole career. I'm not sure if you're like that community that you're talking about is DBR. When we were both in London very, very early on, that basically was all the startup recruiters that were, also throwing their hands up in the air, like, how do we do this? Because we have, we need to scale these companies and we can't use agencies. And basically sticking together to learn from one another. I think that is the core concept, and I've taken that from day one. Also in my hiring days, when I was hiring engineers, I was also trying to get engineers together and throw a community for them. So I think just building, and I'm still reaping the benefits from that, like hiring engineers that I met like 10 years ago from those community efforts into Ashby right now. So I think if we take that community look from a not from a business perspective, or just a thing that you want to do, is it's if you start building a community, it really helps you amplify your career, and also being part of communities, obviously does it also to a certain extent.
Yeah, really good, Willem. I have to say, underline that in terms of the long-term value of a community, whether you're a member or a starter of it, is just enormous. I mean, I've got no doubt.
In the moment, it's like you're like, oh, nobody wants to come to my events. There's like, what? Like I suffer from that a lot. Like when I throw dinner and people don't show up, I'm like, is it me? Like there's a lot of personal.
It probably is you, Willem. To be honest,
probably me in this case.
Yeah.
No, but it is. I think that's quite taxing. Like if we talk about personal or like mental health and throwing events, etc. You're at least I, like, obviously not one of talking for other people, but I suffered from that quite a bit. Like I need to like really make sure that I decompress after events, and not overdo it.
I just want to make a comment on that, is to say that for anyone who's thinking of doing this, and all of us in the call have been in the same boat, is always have 5 or 6 strong community members that will be there regardless.
Yeah.
Because then if not a lot of people arrive, then at least you've got your core group, and I think that is vital as a community leader. Almost have unofficial deputies. It really makes your life a lot easier.
Yeah,
a lot of it is just like making friends, right? I mean, it's almost basic stuff. How do you make friends with people in industry? It's kind of hard to do if you're not spending sort of full time together. I mean, we used to make friends purely by being colleagues. If you spin back 20 years ago, you probably wouldn't make any professional friends in industry other than the people you directly work with. But now suddenly we're going across these company boundaries. I think it's a huge opportunity. You're meeting with peers. How do we make friends? If you have more good friends in industry, it just makes sense that's going to pay dividend for you in all kinds of unexpected ways down the track. It's going to be easier to get job opportunities. You'll get access to market intelligence. You're going to get stuff that you wouldn't get if you were just isolated from that group. So yeah, lots of really good reasons to do it. Okay, let's shift focus into the how. How do you do it? Particularly the start. Like what is the thing that gets you started? Do you need to have a big idea? Does it have to be a themed in some way? Do we have to police it? Because sometimes a community can't be overly open and permissible to everybody. We have to also say, who's not in. Right. And that's not necessarily a comfortable thing for us in TA and HR to say, but it is true. You've got to have some gate there to make sure, okay, this is the group that is specifically for. So when the community started for everyone here, what are the things you got to do? Step 1, 2, 3. Anybody?
Yeah. Like for me, I started with a mission. Like, what's the mission of the community? And the very first event, I brought friends together, people that I knew, that I trusted, who were aligned to the mission, but also to co-create our values of what we stood for in the community. And for me, that was one of the most important steps, because those values now kind of dictate how we continue to build each experience, and we're refining, who is the community for every time, what's working, what's not working. But yeah, mission and values or principle alignment for me.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with Marie. I think understanding your why and really understanding your why. What is your intent? What do you want to achieve? What does, if this is a huge success in 5 years, how would you define that? How would it grow? How would community members feel? Right? I could think it's look, there's not a lot of friction out there. It's easy to start a community. It's really fucking hard to start a meaningful community where people feel like they belong and they're engaged. And, you know, Hung, this isn't a shout fest for you, but I'll give you one anyway. Like, I think what you've built with Brainfood is, to me, a modern masterclass in building not just the community, but the ecosystem around it. There's no better example in our industry than what you've built, bar none, like, period. And I've seen a lot of things out there. So I feel like I could make that statement with confidence. I think it's a place where people belong, where they grow, where they engage. The platform is really important too. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about starting a community, that platform decision, put a lot of thought into that. Because there's a lot of platforms out there. There's you could go easy, low tech with like a Facebook group. You could build a Slack community. That's going to get expensive, so you better have a plan to monetize. There's lots of niche communities. You could use LinkedIn groups, but don't. Because what I've also realized is, like, and this, I've seen this twice, like both with HR open source at one point, like that started as a Facebook group because we're just like, everybody's on Facebook, it's easy, LinkedIn group sucks, so we'll use Facebook groups. And then, you know, after a while we're like, okay, like, why are we kind of giving Facebook all of this? And, you know, we had some questions about whether we tried moving twice to Discord, to other places. It didn't work. The community didn't port. And so we ended up sticking with Facebook. The same thing happened in my most recent community, the Amplify Talent community, which was a paid community oriented towards people leaders. That started in Slack because most of the members were in tech. And so Slack was native for them, but Slack is a communications tool. It's not a community tool. So we moved to 2 different platforms at 2 different times, and the community the engagement struggled and it suffered. So we went back to Slack. So, like, just know whatever platform you select, that's likely what you're going to be riding with. It's really hard to port a community from one platform to another.
Yeah. Let me just,
and on that note,
Van, I've got to say this real quick. Sorry. I just want to say, how damaging was the attempt to switch, Lars, if you don't mind me saying? Like, did the community survive the attempt to come back, or was it like really damaged by getting people to pour
yeah, it survived. I mean, fortunately, we had a really robust and engaged community before we made this decision to switch. If we didn't, it probably would have killed it, to be honest. But we had a really engaged, but engagement dipped noticeably. And so in both cases, we went back, and then, you know, it ended up ticking back up to similar levels as it was before. But that was only because we made that decision, you know, in the case of HR open source, probably 2.5 years in. So, you know, it's already a community of 8,000, you know, global members. I think with the Amplify community, we probably had, you know, at that point, a couple hundred. So it wasn't massive. But again, we were like, the communities we moved to were great. I was like really excited to be able to build out those. But when no one showed up, like, it's great, but we don't have a density of members here, so we had to go back.
Yeah, thank you, Lars. Go ahead, Van.
Or having moved from our Facebook community as well, when we were on about 4,000 members, we went to something called Superwave, which was like Circle or Heartbeat, and it was such a great platform. Oh man, I loved it. But also very low uptake from the community members to come across. Then Superwave sold to Remo, and the whole thing kind of collapsed. So within 6 months of putting loads of effort into building this community there, it all just crumbled down. So thank goodness I hadn't closed the Facebook group. So 2 things to think about this is the platform. Lars, that was a great point. The second one, don't suddenly think that you can have a free community where you give away loads for free and you're always there, and then you want to try and monetize it, because you'll never be able to monetize it. And that is the position that I'm in at the moment. I don't want to monetize it. I tried when I moved the platform over to Superwave, have a paid tier, have a free tier. But when you've given so much away up front, it's very difficult to change. So just think about your communities. Think about, and I can see Mahmoud agreeing with me there, think about your reason behind it and what is your end goal when you start. Because if you don't do it from the beginning, sure, it's tougher. And I've given up.
No, I agree with you, Vanessa, on this one, because we're also kind of thinking about, do we keep it free? My community is completely for free. We don't let anyone pay
It's
anything.
Africa.
And also, I mean, also that, no, but our model is that we it's always our sponsors who are the ones who are putting the money in. So if we're doing a meetup, it's normally a company that opens their doors and they host us.
Yeah.
They take care of everything. They take care of, the catering, the drinks, all of those things. And then we just basically, we bring the community in, we manage the program. So everything has been free so far. But one of the products that we want to continue doing, we've done it one time so far, and that was last year. And we're trying to do it again this year, but timings are just not working for me and the rest of the community managers, is that we want to do a yearly conference. So that's a yearly TA conference. We've never had a TA conference in Egypt. We've had HR conferences, but we want to specifically do one for TA, and we want to keep it on an annual basis. The first one we did it for free, but it was on a much smaller scale. We had about 120 people, so it wasn't a huge conference. But now we really want to do something big, and now we stopped at the point of, do we let people pay tickets or not? Because if you go to any conference you basically pay a ticket for.
Yeah.
But we really want to be smart about how we're going to do it, because like you said, Vanessa, it's very hard that we've given so much for free so far, and it is known to be a free community. And now to come back and do something paid, but we're trying to, since it's only one product that we want to monetize, we were hoping that it will be easier for us to make that move. We haven't done it so far. We can definitely check in again, and I can let you guys know what we've done. And we use Slack, and we're also looking at maybe shifting into a full-on community platform. We're thinking of Circle. I haven't used it before, but I've heard a lot of great stuff about it.
That's good.
Because Slack has been great for the past 2 years, but maybe at some point we want to expand a little bit and we want to scale up. And I think Circle or any other community platform would be better.
Yeah, and Mahmoud, I would just say, having moved from Slack to Circle, like we had, my last paid community was in Circle, and we used the higher version where we actually had a custom app that people could download as well. So it was all branded. It's solid. So like, I think if we would have started there from the start, and also I think there's a lot of like nascent community platforms out there that to Van's experience, like may not be around a little bit longer. I think we've already seen a lot of shaking out of those. I think Circle's here to stay. So I think that's the other thing too, is like, there's a risk in embracing a really new, flashy, cool community tool that may not be around in a year.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
If you want to see an example of Circle, the best one that I follow it's called the Talent Collective. It's out of the US. It's run by a stellar group of ladies. It's for female women TA specialists in the US. They're expanded. They have meetups in different cities. So if you can have a look at their Circle group, it's really one that is stellar and one that is incredibly well run.
And if I can chip in a little bit on kind of like, if you're thinking about starting a community, kind of like for vendors like me, communities are super interesting and important, because I always like to sponsor communities, especially fledgling communities that are still built with passion. So I think Marie is a good example of it. Mahmoud is also a very good example of kind of like building things from a passion. TA Crunch from Berlin is a very good example. But there are also, on the flip side, there are also these companies that are building communities just for financial gain. And I think if you want to err on the vendor side, at least the Ashby vendor side, for us, kind of like if you bring a group of people together with similar interests, and obviously from a TA perspective, that is very interesting for me to help you get that kicked off. So I think that's a message to anyone who has a community or starting a community. I'm always very eager to chat with you and get things off the ground, in terms of logistics. If you want to do dinners, events, etc. I have great speakers, etc. I think there can be not enough communities in this ecosystem.
Nice.
Yeah, and Marie, I want to bring you in. Go on.
No, I was joking. I said we're waiting for the sponsor, Willem.
I like that. You go, girl.
Deals getting done on Brainfood Live. This is great.
I love it. Love it.
I should be charging some commission on this. Marie, setting up a paid community, I think that's kind of, it's great that you had that as the initial vision. And it kind of solves a lot of those switching problems that people might have. If obviously as the community gets larger and larger, it actually gets more and more work, such that you actually are spending all your time doing it. And of course, you need to think about how you monetize, particularly if you're on a platform that suddenly starts cranking up the rates on you. You can't put this out of your own pocket, right? So that's one challenge to switch. But for you, you came at it with the view, okay, we're going to start with pay because we're going to produce a certain experience. How did you come up with the numbers? How did you come up with the experience idea? And how did you come up with the demographic that you thought would, this would deliver the value to them?
Yeah, it's been very much like just build on the, build as you go, learn as you go. We've only existed, our first dinner event was in February this year, and we've hosted 5 dinners, and one of those has been in Berlin. And I've always, when the community initially started and it was online, I think I was having like some brainstorming sessions with people, and I was like, I kind of want to open it for everyone. We can heal the world if we have a community that's that we make open for everyone. But then it almost becomes like a therapy session, and you're actually not solving, like if I go back to the mission, which was unmasking stigmas and changing workplaces, how am I going to do that if I have this open community for everybody? And that's when it became more relevant to really niche down and make sure that we had HR people and culture leaders in particular at the dinner events. And I started with that communication. And through the dinner experiences, so after every dinner, they're really small, intimate groups, and I use that as an opportunity to gather feedback and to get insights. And everyone's been really helpful so far to be able to share and give that feedback, which has allowed us to be able to redefine. And what we noticed is that after these dinner experiences, our community had nowhere to come together after. How do they connect with one another? It doesn't need to be, I think the online community space, something that I'm testing at the moment because we've only just launched the platform, it doesn't necessarily need to be a space for continuous chats. It just needs a place to be able to connect with somebody. And that could be, okay, I'm seeing what their background is, I'm able to reach out to them. And so the platform was really built for consistency for me, to keep everything in one place, to have the community members to say, okay, after the dinners, this is where you go to reconnect with the people and, share your experiences or share your thoughts or go deeper on a topic. And that will evolve, of course, because some of the topics that come out of our dinner experiences can be quite sensitive. So, we also want to use that as a place to kind of point people in the direction to get the support that they need, because they might not necessarily get that through the experiences. So, we kind of evolved from in-person experiences to this online platform now, which has just launched. I've given everyone that's attended our dinners like a free access for the first month. And actually next week, I'm hosting like a co-founding day. Come co-found with me, which is going to be like a brainstorming session with some of the leaders that have been there from the start, to really kind of map out, how do we want this to look from the inside? What's going to be useful to you, not to me, to them, to be able to get the right relevance from it.
Yeah, really. And I love this where we're going from the online to offline and offline to online. There's 2 different journeys. It's basically, but it feels that then you need to do both, right? Ideal case is that you need to do both. And how you make that transition is going to be key. Go ahead, Marie.
Just to add on that, like I think you need an online space to know so for example, it depends what your community is. If it's an in-person community, there has to be then that consideration, like, do we want people to connect after? Is that the purpose of building this community? Or is it enough to say our community is in-person experiences and we're designed for these meaningful connections in person, and sometimes that's also enough for somebody? But yeah, I think centralization is important.
Yeah, really interesting. Guys, I
good
can't
point.
believe we've come to 3 p.m. already. So we've really flown through this conversation. But let's keep it
Sure.
going, because I think we've got a few more things to discuss here.
Yep.
Particularly on the issue of why community could be relevant for recruiting generally. So we're talking about, building community for knowledge exchange within recruiting, let's say. Could it be useful, for instance, for building a community of people you might want to recruit from, or supply to? Has anybody got any experience of doing that? What are anybody's thoughts here?
Yeah.
I'll jump in quick. Oh yeah, sorry, Mahmoud. I also have to jump at the top of the hour, so I'll share a quick thought before I bounce. Look, I think that in a lot of ways this is the future of recruiting, because especially you and kind of Van talked about earlier, with the amount of just AI slop and content out there, like it's never been easier to find people. It's never been easier to generically personalize an email or an email to reach out to them. People are getting flooded, and there's so much noise out there that, like, if you as a company, like if you have not done anything to build relationships or to kind of get to know on any level the talent you're recruiting, and you're just cold recruiting every single candidate, unless you've got a really compelling job and a very compelling value prop, like it's going to be really hard to break through. And so, this doesn't have to be like, hey, join our talent network, which for most companies is a dormant ATS database. But it can be like, let's find ways to engage with you. And this is one of the things that we actually started doing at Fruitus, which I think helped us do this, is like, we're an up and coming kind of CPG brand where people don't really know who we are compared to the FANGs of the world that we're trying to recruit against. So we had to do some interesting, unexpected things to get people's attention. So we created this AI video campaign about a blueberry loving Bigfoot, kind of following like the Bigfoot memes, called The Quest. And it was an 8-week episodic arc that it was basically like a show. It had a hero's journey kind of arc to the story. But the whole intent of that was just to get on people's radars, to let them know, hey, like, we don't think about things traditionally. We are cool taking risks and experimenting in these ways. And we found that was a really powerful discovery agent for. Now, was that a way for us to build community? No, but it was a way for us to build top of funnel awareness so that we can start to activate them in different ways. So, anyway, just a thought. I think that this is the future of recruiting. I think teams have to get really smart around cultivating relationships and recruiting year round, regardless about there's the transactional aspect of recruiting. We have these recs, we need these people, but there's the opportunistic aspect as well that I think we have to invest more time in. How do we cultivate relationships with talent? How do we get on the radar? How do we get them to be aware of us, like us, be interested in us, kind of work them down that engagement funnel? So
keep them warm.
That is the setup for part 2 of this, because we've only just got started with this conversation. How does the community sort of a focus look like in this AI-enabled world? I do believe we're going to hit an engagement cliff. People are going to revoke our attention from public inboxes. We're going to pay almost exclusive attention into private spaces where we feel safe and where we feel as if there's some sort of belonging. And obviously that makes sense for any business to start thinking about creating those spaces for themselves. So that is definitely a part 2 we want to run through. But before we leave everyone here, why don't we just communicate to the audience for the final thoughts? What tips for people that are thinking about, okay, how can I put some community thinking in my efforts, whether it's setting up a community, joining a community, or using some techniques in community to do recruiting? What would those things be? Mahmoud, let's start with you.
For me, I think that my tips would be from the hard lessons I learned through building ERC is, I think, just have a plan. I started very scrappy in the beginning. I had no plan, no idea what I'm going to do. I just wanted to host events. That's just all I wanted to do. So I would say just have an idea of how you want to shape the community. And I think that comes from the why. I think someone mentioned earlier, why are we doing the community? Is it to create a space for people to belong? Then great. How are you going to do that? Is it online? Is it offline? Is it through meetups? Is it through workshops? Is it through conferences? Doesn't matter. It could be a lot of different shapes, but just have a clear idea of how you want to run it. And then maybe the second thing for me is I do this next to my full-time job. I do this just out of passion. I don't make money out of it. I purely do it for passion. But at a certain point in time, it will grow so hard that you cannot do it on your own anymore. And I think the best decision I made about a year ago is when I asked 4 community managers to join on board. And now we have everyone focused on one thing. It allows me to still be creative and focus on one thing, but also it allows the others to kind of help in the community as well and kind of take more of an active role instead of just being a member and just attending. So these would be my biggest 2 tips, I would say, for now, that I learned through.
Fantastic, Mahmoud. Thank you so much. Marie, final word to you. What have you, we know that you're learning and you're just getting on sort of right now, you're in the middle of it, but if you could kind of maybe give advice to yourself, if you could, zoom in a time machine and go back a year and a bit, what advice would you give that version of Marie about this community building?
I mean, at the moment, I'm pretty tired. I think like don't burn yourself out doing something that you love, because it will end up being something that you don't love in the end. So I think taking care is something that I need to constantly check in myself. But I'm here and I'm pushing through anyway. Some of the things that I kind of wrote down was just kind of like summarizing what we already spoke about. So be intentional, like know who you're for and who you're not for. Do it your way. Don't do it alone. That's the whole purpose of community. Like bring people into the journey, into the experience. I loved what you said, Van, about bringing your friends along. So every dinner that I host, I make sure that we had 2 people who attended previously re-attending. Because again, it creates like this sense of being familiar.
Continuity.
Yeah, exactly. And also they're great people to learn from in the journey. Like, what do we do differently this time and how can we continue to improve? And yeah, like get your advocates to support you.
Fantastic stuff. Vanessa, your thoughts before we let it go?
I'm actually quite surprised that this hasn't come up, by the way, is that you have to be, as a community manager, you have to be Switzerland. You cannot have favorites. If there's any disputes, or how you spoke about, who do you let in or out? You cannot let any toxic personalities in. You really have to be strong, and it's not.
Oh, we lost her.
Van, I think you've gone mute for some reason. This is at the critical point. Vanessa's gone mute.
Vanessa,
I
we
don't think
can't
she
hear
can
you.
hear us. That's okay. Maybe that's the sign from the gods to say, okay, we have to get off air. So let's do that. Vanessa, thank you very much. Marie, thank you as well. Mahmoud, great to connect.
Thank you so much.
Good luck, everyone who's going to Sosu, by the way. Fantastic event.
There we go.
And one of the pioneering events, actually, in terms of community. So let us know how we all get on there. And yeah, think about community. If you don't want to start a community, go ahead and join one. There's plenty out there. You really will enrich sort of your professional life, but I think it's great for all kinds of reasons for personal life as well. All right, we'll definitely do a round 2 on this. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend.
See you soon, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
See
See
you
you
next
soon.
week.
See you soon.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers, Hang. Cheers.
Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching. So much more to talk about, particularly how to, firstly, there's people talking about monetization. I have to say there's ways to do that. So I might do a show particularly on that, or maybe it's a workshop, I don't know. And secondly, there is a concept of, how do we make it useful, particularly for recruiting? And I think that may be a more natural second part of this, because wouldn't it be great if you could create a community of people that you recruit from? Wouldn't that give you a competitive advantage in this world? Okay, that's about it. We'll go on to thank you very much, Peggy. Peggy, of course, part of a great community over in Montreal as well. I say hi to all of the folks in Montreal, by the way. And we will be back next week. There's a double header next week, not one but 2 Brainfood Lives. We're going to be talking in the midweek show. We're going to be talking about interviews, not evaluating implementing the right skills, some brilliant data from our friends in Bright Hire. We're going to be talking to Ben Sessa and William Leeds and just going through like, what the heck are we actually interviewing for? We've got the raw data on this, so we understand how people are behaving at interview and why we do need to improve our game there. And on Friday, we're going to talk again about recruiting co-pilots. What does the future of recruitment look like when every one of us has a co-pilot? Some future thinking, folks. What does it look like going forward? Let's say we're in 2030. How does TA look like when everybody has an active co-pilot working with us? 2 brilliant shows. Make sure you sign up for those events. They're already up there. Make sure you follow the channel if you're interested in this type of chat. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, just follow my page. I do this every week, sometimes more than once a week, and you'll be notified every time I go live. Okay, that's about it. Have a good week.